Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you yet again another comic book Hollywood video segment right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's comic book Hollywood movie review. So, you all voted for it in last week's comic book Hollywood video comments, and thank God you did, because I remember, I think it was the day after I uploaded that All-Star Superman review, I went back and I rewatched this movie, hoping that, God, I really hope it's still in the league at the end of this week, still in the lead at the end of this week, because I didn't want to rewatch it for nothing. But anywho, you all voted for it, so this week's comic book Hollywood video segment, I will be reviewing the DC animated film Batman Under the Red Hood. Now, before I jump into this review, few things. Number one, yes, like I said, I just recently watched Under the Red Hood, so it is still fresh in my memory. However, the two stories in which this movie is adapted from, being A Death in the Family and Batman Under the Hood, I have not read those since, I think, high school? Or no, I read Death in the Family in high school, and I think I read Under the Hood my freshman year in college. Anywho, it's been a very long time, so to help me out with that, I got good old Wikipedia here, and I brushed up on it a little bit. So throughout the course of the review, I will be doing a few compare and contrast. Kind of like how I did in my All-Star Superman video, where I compared a few things from the book and a few things from the movie. Pretty much what's different. I won't really address what they have in common the same, just what they have in different. Which for the most part is the whole goal of this video segment, is to review films that are adapted from comic book stories and see how well they adapted the material. So, with that said, let's jump into the review. Now, to give you all a brief info session on what, for those of you who haven't seen the movie Batman Under the Red Hood, what it's about. Now, Batman Under the Red Hood is a 2010 direct-to-video animated superhero film based on the Batman storylines A Death in the Family and Under the Hood. The film is the 8th in the DC Universe animated original movie line, released by Warner Brothers Premiere and Warner Brothers Animation. It was released on July 27, 2010. The film stars Bruce Greenwood as Bruce Wayne / Batman, Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood / Jason Todd, and John DiMaggio as the Joker. The screenplay was written by Judd Winick, who also wrote the Under the Hood run in the monthly Batman comic. Bruce Greenwood reprises the voice of Batman in Young Justice. So, with that said, now, following my typical movie review format, brief summary of the film. For the most part, Under the Red Hood centers around, like I mentioned before, two stories. The first being A Death in the Family, which is the story in which Jason Todd, the second Robin, Batman's second sidekick, was brutally beaten and murdered by the Joker. And of course, Batman blaming himself for it and having to come to grips with that loss. In Under the Hood, Jason Todd returns, but under the alias of the Red Hood. The Red Hood being an alias that the Joker used back before he became the Joker. And what the Red Hood has managed to do in Gotham, he pretty much kicks off a gang war. In the film, it's with Black Mask, but I forget who it was with in the book. I think it was Black Mask in the book also. In the film, it's Black Mask. But he pretty much kicks off a gang war with Black Mask, because what the Red Hood is trying to do is that instead of trying to rid crime in Gotham, and instead of trying to get rid of the crime in Gotham, he's trying to regulate the crime in Gotham. He's trying to control the crime. And of course, that puts him at odds with Batman. And so throughout the film, the two are playing somewhat of a cat and mouse chase game until Batman realizes who in fact the Red Hood really is. And then of course it accumulates into this great showdown at the end of the film with Batman, the Red Hood, and the Joker. So that's as brief as a synopsis I could give without giving anything away, because as I've stated in my All-Star Superman review, for the most part my comic book Hollywood movie reviews will be non-spoiler. So with that said, let's jump into the actual story. The actual story followed by the writing and the dialogue. Now, which will all kind of culminate into one section. Now, the actual story, as far as the film's ability to adapt both of those stories in one film. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and I want to let you all know this now. First off, for DC to choose two rather mature stories to make into an animated film, you know, Under the Red Hood, I think Under the Red Hood was DC's first testament to their ability to tell mature stories through the animated medium. Because for all of you who have been following the DC animated films, the new ones, like the first two I believe were what, Doomsday and Gotham Knight, and you can tell that in those films, especially Superman Doomsday, they tried too hard to make it mature. You know, they had like unnecessary profanity, they had some blood but not much. I mean, shit, nothing that you wouldn't see in like a fucking Toonami edit of Dragon Ball Z. Like they wanted so badly to have a PG-13 rated animated film, so they did all this unnecessary shit to the film, which, I mean, I kind of hope that you all will request for me to review Superman Doomsday, because I'm gonna fucking tear that shit asunder. That movie was god-awful. That was a horrible adaptation. But, so getting back to the topic, the thing was, I commend DC for what they did, because, number one, it's difficult enough in itself to combine two stories in one movie, because that's what they did with Superman Doomsday. Superman Doomsday was an adaptation of The Death of Superman and what was it, Reign of the Supermen. So in this film, they took two story arcs, combined them into one. That's ambitious enough in itself, but the way it was written, the way they told the story, they managed to do so with mature content, but not in a they weren't pandering for a mature audience. They didn't just throw shit in the movie for shock value, is what I'm saying. For many of you all who have seen some of my previous reviews about, like, say, Shiguri or some other movie reviews, a lot of times I talk about shock value. I talk about shock value and why I don't like shock value, because most time people just cop out and they pander to shock value. What I'm talking about is they put a bunch of shit in the movie that doesn't deserve to be there or doesn't belong there. They just do it just to get a rise out of people. This film didn't do that. Their shock value was very subtle, and it got the point across. Case in point, two scenes I want to mention. The first scene being when the Red Hood gathers all these drug bosses, and he throws down he throws down a duffel bag on the table. They unzip the bag. One dude pukes, the other dude says, "That's messed up." We never see what's in the bag. We never see what's in the bag. But Red Hood tells him, "Those are the severed heads of all of your lieutenants." That's what I could do in 2 hours. You want to see what I could do in a whole evening? That was enough. That was enough shock value. We didn't need to see the grotesque heads all bloody and shit in the bag. We didn't need to see that. The characters' reaction to what they saw and the Red Hood's dialogue afterwards, that was enough. Perfect. You got the point across beautifully. This movie does that. Also, the scene in which Black Mask is meeting with the Joker, and they're in this very tight corridor, and the Joker asks for a glass of water. One of the Black Mask guys give it to him. He breaks the glass, slits the dude's throat, grabs his gun, and shoots the other 3 bodyguards in the room. Like that. Beautiful shock value. It was instant, it was swift, it was done, and there wasn't like a lot. I don't even remember there being blood in that scene, because it was like pop, 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 and that was it. You just saw the bodies fall. Perfect. Beautiful. That's all you needed. What I'm trying to illustrate to you all is that you don't need, like I've said multiple times, you don't need gratuitous violence or sex to get perfect shock value across. You don't. This movie is a beautiful example of that. And like I said, it is a testament to DC's ability to tell mature storytelling in the animated medium. Because they took this film very seriously. As far as the writing, the pacing of the story goes, it flowed very well. There is not an unwanted slow moment in this movie. What I'm saying is this: for those of you who know the pacing of a film, just like the pacing of a good book, there are high points, there are low points. There are moments when the movie has to slow down for rest. There are moments where it has to build up to the big action. What I'm saying is, this movie was paced like a symphony. Really? You gonna start that squeaking shit in the middle of a video? For real, bro? For real? I'm sorry, I'm arguing with my air conditioner. I'm sorry if you all can hear that. That's disrespectful, man. I don't appreciate that. Anyway, so but yes, the pacing works beautifully. Everything goes ahead, I want to say, according to plan, if you will. It all flows naturally, which was very surprising considering that they are taking two stories and blending them together. These stories are being told as if they took place one after the other, and the way they melded that together worked really well. That's the work of good writing. The dialogue in this movie was great. Especially Red Hood's monologues were beautiful. Red Hood's monologues were great. His jokes. See, and this is going to bring me into the next section, which is the acting. In this case, the voice acting. Jensen Ackles, one of my favorite actors. Huge fan of him. Well, of course, I first ran into Jensen Ackles in Smallville season 4. As Coach Jason Teague, and then of course Supernatural as Dean Winchester. But Jensen Ackles also has voice acting chops, and the way he was able to perform that dialogue, especially with the jokes. Any of you all who are fans of Jensen Ackles know that the way he does comedy, it's kind of like out of nowhere, but it's so genuine. And his performance of Red Hood's comedy is the same way. Also, the Joker had good dialogue in this film also. I really did enjoy the Joker's dialogue. So with that said, let's jump into the voice acting, because this film took some risk with voice acting, because a lot of the iconic Batman animated cast is not in this film. Two, most importantly, are being Batman and the Joker, who in most Batman animated incarnations are voiced by Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, respectfully, as Batman and the Joker. However, this film introduced two. Straight out the back, we got Bruce Greenwood and John DiMaggio. And I will say this now, both of them did those characters justice. Bruce Greenwood, I've been familiar with him for a while because I've seen him in a couple of films. For any of y'all who's wondering who Bruce Greenwood is, he played the president on National Treasure Book of Secrets. He played the captain on the new Star Trek, the captain before Kirk. So he's been around a bit. And for any of you all who watch Young Justice, you know he does the voice for Batman on that series. And I think most of that goes to the success of Under the Red Hood, because he did that really well. But the surprise, other than Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood, the surprise was John DiMaggio as the Joker, because his voice is a lot different. It's a lot deeper, a lot more monotone. But there are parts where his portrayal of the Joker was scary. Like the scene at the beginning of the film, the scene in which he leaves Jason Todd to die, and he's putting up his hood. He says, okay kid, it's been fun. I gotta go. Do all your homework and be in bed by 9. And so he's getting ready to walk out the door, and then he says, oh, and tell the big man I said hello. Like that, the way he did it gave me fucking goosebumps when I saw it. I was like, oh my God. John DiMaggio, oh, and the laugh. I did not think John DiMaggio was going to be able to pull off that laugh. He pulled it off. And I was surprised. But it's not Mark Hamill's laugh. It's John DiMaggio's laugh. It's a much more deeper tone Joker. But he starts out, he's like, it gets higher as it goes. Like, and I'm sorry for that horrible impersonation, but it starts deep and it gets high. And I'm like, how did he do that? But John DiMaggio is a very talented voice actor. He's been around for, I think, well over a decade. Shit, probably 2 decades. He's been around a long time. Yeah, I really apologize for that impersonation of that laugh. I don't know what the fuck. What the fuck was that, Larry? What the fuck, dude? Anywho, so, okay, the animation. The animation, I will say, like I've said many times about other DC animated films, there is a caliber of animation. There's a level of quality that I expect from these films. And I think this was the film that set that standard for me. Because if you pay attention to all of the DC animated films after this, they kind of follow that same level of quality. Even Batman Year One, which has a different art style, still has that same level of quality. And I'm not saying that the animated films before Batman Under the Red Hood didn't have it. But what I'm saying is, when Under the Red Hood came out, the way it dealt with its animation quality, the way it was able to do so, it seemed like that set the standard for all of the movies to come. And I'm very happy about that. The music was real good. Actually, the music for this film was done by Christopher Drake, who also did the music for All-Star Superman, which was one of the things I said about All-Star Superman, was that the music was good. Same thing in Under the Red Hood. The music is good. Christopher Drake, I haven't heard much of his work, but from what I've heard so far, homeboy got chops. He's got skills. So finally, that's going to bring me to my overall rating of the film. Of course, like I said, this in my opinion is the best DC animated film. Under the Red Hood, I think, is the best one. And I would go ahead and I'd give it a solid 5 out of 5 stars. That's an A+ in my book. I know that earlier in the video I said I would make some compare and contrast between this and the source material. And to be honest with you, what Death in the Family, Under the Hood, and then of course Batman Under the Red Hood, what Under the Red Hood left out of those 2 stories, I think, was the filler. For the most part, the most important shit I think they got in the film. Because here's the thing. Of course, Death in the Family, that's the story. That story is really more, it's not about Jason Todd being killed by the Joker, which is what it's most famous for. That's not what that story is about. That story is about Jason Todd's search for his parents. That's Jason Todd's search for identity, for heritage. That's what that movie's about. Book, excuse me. That's what that story arc is about. At its root, that's what it's about. And then, of course, all these other events transpire off of Jason's need for that closure. However, the movie is focusing on Jason as an adult, not Jason as a child. If it was focusing on Jason still as a kid being Robin, then yeah, you would have had to include all those things from A Death in the Family. But because it is focusing on him as the Red Hood, you don't need that. A Death in the Family in this movie is used only as the backdrop for why Jason is the way he is. It's used as part of his character development and his character history. Now, as for the Under the Hood story, which is what the movie pulls from the most, I think it was adapted pretty damn well, especially since they had the author of that working on the movie. He wrote the movie. He adapted his own work. And I think he did a good job, because what he left out was filler. It was the flush shit. The fluffy shit. You don't really need that. He gave us the meat and potatoes, and that's what we needed in the film. You take the meat and potatoes from both stories, you put them in there, you put that bitch in a blender, and you got a kick-ass manly fucking smoothie called Batman Under the Red Hood. 5 stars, highly recommended if you haven't seen it. If nothing else, see it for the voice acting. Great fucking voice acting. Loved it. Loved it. Oh, also Jason Isaacs does a voice. He does Ra's al Ghul in the movie. So that's really good too. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. And like I said, in the comments below, drop your suggestions, drop your requests for next week's Comic Book Hollywood movie review. And of course, if you see one you like, thumb it up. Thumb them up. But until next time, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.